Hey everyone, it's Chris from Line Punch Forge. Today I've got a quick tutorial for you. I'm going to show you how to make two different types of burnishers. And to do that, I'm going to use some old jewelry burrs. So I'm going to show you kind of what I have here in this little container of old burrs. And then I'll show you some of the tools that I use in order to make some of the micro burnishers. You can make your own, or I do sell them on my website as well. So follow along. We're going to do a quick tutorial on how to make two different types of burnishers. Okay, first of all, burrs. I've got a lot. These ones are old ones. Some are probably still good. Most of them are pretty worn out, old, got a little bit of rust on them. So we're going to use them for a tool making project. So what I'm going to do is select two of these, and I've already selected them here. I selected them because one of them has a smaller shank here, and one of them has a little larger shank. So the smaller shank we're going to turn into a very small pointed micro burnisher, and this larger one we're going to grind off the teeth and create a bent burnisher using a little bit of forging. Okay, first comes prep. For this little guy we're going to turn into the pointed burnisher. We're going to take a pair of pliers. We're going to grab him by the little tip of the burr there, and I'm just going to snap that off. This is a hardened piece of steel, so that should snap off pretty easily. And there's my little burr tip right there. This next one, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to take this on a grinding stone, and we're going to grind off all of those teeth so we're left with a little bit of a point there without any of those striations. So we're going to go grab a diamond stone. For this, you can use a diamond stone, you can use a sharpening stone, you can use different grits of sandpaper, but for this I'm going to be using a diamond stone because I have it. I'm going to be using two different grits. This one here is a 300 grit. This is an ultra sharp diamond stone 300 grip 300 grit. I'm going to chuck the burr into my micromotor or flex shaft so that when I turn it on, I have the centrifugal motion of it turning. What that's going to do is allow me to use the micromotor like a lathe and grind off those teeth so this stays concentric. Let's go ahead and do that. Don't mind the noise. Notice I am rotating this up and down to try and get all those teeth. I'll have to tip it up just a little bit to get that edge. And it looks like I've got the majority of those teeth off. I'm going to do one more pass and then I'll go to the 1200 grit. Okay, now that guy is nice and ready for the forging process. So before we start the forging process, I'm going to get this other burnisher made. So this straight micro burnisher is going to be pretty easy as far as how we're going to finish this out. We're almost done with it. We're going to use the 1200 grit stone and then another specialized stone to kind of get a nice polish on it. If you don't have stones like this, you can use different grits of sandpaper. So that is a possibility. Or if you have sharpening stones, you can use that as well. Let's get this chucked up in the micromotor and we'll get it finished up. So for this, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to run the micromotor so that it's rotating, and I'm going to tip this up like this, or I can move my stone to kind of create a rounded tip here. I don't want a point. If I'm trying to make a stippling tool, then yes, I want a point. But for a burnisher, I want a nice round point. I don't want anything sharp. So let's take a look at it. I have a little bit of a point there, so I'm going to go straight up on the stone and just rotate it like that. Round that off a little bit. Now I have more of a rounded point versus a sharp point. The last thing I'm going to do for this burnisher is grab one of my favorite sharpening stones. It's called a lily white Washita, and they're relatively uncommon, but they have such a cool finish to them, and it should give this guy a nice little polish. So let's go ahead and do that. Take a look underneath the microscope, see if I have all the little burrs and bits off. I'm going to do the tip just a little bit because it has kind of a little bit of a sharp point. Okay. Not bad, not bad. I'll take some close-ups here. Okay. We got our tip nice and polished. The last thing I can do is just take a little bit of a rubberized abrasive and maybe give that a little extra polish, or I can do some rouge on some leather and just give that a nice finish polish. Okay, for the second one, we're going to do a little hot forging on this guy. I have him nice and polished up, just kind of taking all the teeth off. I'm going to move him over to the anvil. This isn't going to take much, but before I do that, I'm going to show you kind of my forging setup for my anvil. If I do stuff just with the light forging, it's not my big forge, but just anvil forging, how to keep my torch nice and upright, right in my way, and then basically how I strike to make a specialized tool out of this. Okay, so here's my anvil. This one's about 260 pounds or so, 240, 260 pounds. It has a square hardy hole in it that I'm able to put my torch through, and I can turn my torch on down there and have it come out the top. It's going to be a little loud when that's happening, so I'll show you how hot it needs to get before I do my forging, and then I'm going to move my camera down to the anvil so you can actually see the forging versus seeing me heat it up and move it back and down. I'd like to get a close-up on what's happening here versus you watching both here and there. So let me do the torch first to show you kind of how hot it's going to get, and in order to hold this, I'm going to be using a pin vise to grasp onto it and make sure that my hands don't get too hot while I'm doing my forging. So I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so the pin vise I'm going to be using for this is a Starrett. It's got a nice opening in here for me to be able to put my burr into, close it down, hold it nice and tight while I do my forging, and that way I don't have to hold on to the metal. First, I'm going to turn the torch on, show you kind of how hot this needs to be, and that way you can kind of judge. What I'm looking for is the tip of this burr to be a nice bright orange. That's going to be a nice forging temperature for this particular type of steel and most steels. The problem is that when I go from orange down to here, as soon as I touch the anvil is going to draw the heat really fast out of the burr, and it's going to get back down to a metallic color. So I'm going to want to go from here, and before I actually strike, I'm going to hold it above my anvil and then drop it and strike it. If you don't have an anvil, you can use a bench block, anything nice and hard like that, but this is definitely something that you can do in your own shop without a huge anvil like mine. Okay, I've turned my lights off so you can kind of see the heat a little bit better. That's about the color we want. Do it again. Just like that. Okay, on my anvil, I have a nice area here that I've relieved into a curve. That's going to be beneficial when I put the bend in this burnisher. So I'm going to hammer flat down on the top first, and then I'll probably reposition the camera so you can see what's happening, but I'm going to take my hand as I'm forging and move it down towards the bottom of the anvil as I'm hammering to create that curve. And the bottom part of that curve, the inner part of that curve, is going to follow this curvature that I have in my anvil. Turn on the side. Okay, now comes putting in the curve. So I'm going to hammer flat down on the anvil And as I'm hammering, I'm going to move my hand downward to create that bend and curve. So this is what it looks like after forging. It's got some forged scale on it. It's not super pretty, but we're going to make it pretty with some rubberized abrasives. So this is a medium grit rubberized abrasive. It's going to clean this up pretty fast. I'm going to go into the inside curve here. And then on the edges, I'm going to clean it up a little bit, and then I'm going to shape them. I'm going to shape them to be kind of a knife edge, and what that's going to allow me to do is use this tool kind of like a scraper around the edges of a piece of metal. So I feel like I have most of the marks from the forging off. I can go to a lighter grit. The lighter grit is just going to polish up everything nice. There you go. So for this bent burnisher, you can kind of see I have some saw teeth in this piece of metal. If you're doing piercing or you want to clean up an edge, you can take this type of burnisher, this curved one, and you can clean up saw marks. You can burnish edges to make it nice and polished. You can use it to help push down stones that are pretty close together. See how thin the side of this burnisher is. And these mount in pin vices. The other burnisher, like you've seen me use in other videos, can be used to set stones or burnish small areas. Sometimes you can use them to take scratches out of engraving, but they basically polish up metal, help move metal, push things. And in this case, these burnishers probably don't need to be rehardened. These are good to go. You can make pretty much any shape you want, and it's pretty simple. There you go. Two different types of burnishers, really simple, one with forging, one without forging. If you guys have any questions on this kind of stuff, let me know. Making my own tools and teaching you how to make your own tools out of tools that you may just throw in the trash, like old burrs. It's fun, it makes them useful again, and it's satisfying to use the tool that you make when you're working on some of your other projects. So if you have questions, reach out, let me know. And again, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, hit subscribe if you like these kind of videos. Helps me out, helps the algorithm, and yeah, I appreciate you.